Hi, Insta friends. Welcome to a Gab collab about some bags. So, this week in the Bag Gab, I have a very special guest via Zoom, and it is the illustrious Jessie from Cappuccinos and Consignments. So, this week, she and I are going to get into a little bit of a battle about bags, specifically vintage versus contemporary slash new trendy styles. So take a look and let us know your thoughts about these categories. Thanks. How do we introduce this? Hi, InstaFam. Welcome to a Gab about a bag.
Bonjour, mes amis. I am happy to be here. Thank you, Lux on the bot.
Here is the concept for today's video. We are, the two of us, we each have two bags here that we are going to talk about. And so it's a little bit of a battle, of course, all in good fun. There's no answer or correct way to do anything. But we thought we'd share some different perspectives on our buying habits in regards to bags, specifically how we decide to purchase vintage items versus new, contemporary, more trendy items. So Jessie's volunteered to do the vintage items, and I will be speaking up on behalf of whoop, whoop, the newer, I think they're still kind of classic, but definitely newer on the scene items. So we each have 2 points to make about our bags, pros and cons about buying vintage versus buying a new item. So that's what we're going to do today. So if you would start us off with your first vintage, I just jump right into it. Bring the heat because I'm ready.
So I am just totally obsessed with vintage everything, vintage films, movies, cocktails, clothes, just everything. I absolutely love vintage. When I purchase, well, my goal, I've always wanted a Chanel bag. That I knew that was something that I always wanted, but I've always set like these kind of landmarks as to, oh, once I get this age or accomplish that, that's when I'll do this. I used to have these weird things, but I saved enough to get my first Chanel bag. This was, I feel like I was 25 or so, and I was so excited. I was ready to do it. Went to the store. I'm like, okay, this is it. And then I got such cold feet. Like being there in the store, of course, the experience was amazing, but I feel like it was a combination of sticker shock because I had never spent that much money on anything in my life at the age of 25. I feel like the car I was driving at the time was less than the Chanel bag, like to put things into perspective. And I couldn't do it. So I went home, I started doing some research, and then I decided I was going to go vintage. And I decided to go vintage for more than one reason. I am a huge advocate for just clothing waste, textiles waste, just waste. We consume so much, really as Americans, but it's becoming a thing all over the world, just the consumption. So whatever I can do to like recycle something, it just brings me joy in addition to the massive savings. So
The savings are helpful.
yes, so I ended up purchasing, had I purchased brand new, I would have only been able to afford the medium flap. But going vintage, I was able to get the jumbo flap, and I was able to get a design that I had not seen.
Ooh.
I'm not sure if it shows well, but this is the vertical quilting patent leather jumbo flap. And I fell in love. I absolutely fell in love the moment I saw it. This is not what I intended on buying, of course, because had I purchased it from the shop, it would have been the caviar leather quilted Chanel flap. But again, I was in my 20s, and the Chanel flap, it spoke to me because I've always been super conservative, but this to me was just so edgy. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's patent leather. Like I love patent leather. It's super, super, I wouldn't recommend anyone buy patent leather for their first Chanel because it is a bit high maintenance. Like it shows its wear, like scratches and dings and stuff. And I am not gentle with my bags. So I wouldn't recommend patent leather for your first bag, especially if you're going to wear it. But one of the other reasons too that prompted me to get the vintage Chanel is I feel like there's a glare. Is it?
No.
Okay.
Only off the back. Yeah, the shine of the bag is
okay.
Very...
Yeah, so with Chanel bags, I want to say bags made before 2008. That's what they say, but I feel like it was a lot earlier than that. Those bags, the gold, it's gold tone. Like it's gold, it's dipped versus the tone. So to me, it's like if I'm spending $3,000 and $4,000 like to justify it, I want to know that it's like gold. So that was another reason that just drew me to making the leap vintage. And with the savings, I like purchased a ticket to go to like Montreal or Paris or something, and I wore the bag there. So I got a really, really good deal on this, and I am so excited. This is, I mean, to this day, still my baby.
Cool. I love it. I love the story behind it. Mm-hmm. Well, since you did Chanel vintage. Does anybody know that song? Is it just no? Do you know it?
No.
Oh, I'll send it to you. It's not. Yeah, it's not for mixed company or church picnics, but it's fun. So on the opposite end, I am featuring and talking today about a Chanel bag as well, but I am talking about a much newer item, even to the Chanel house, to the fashion world, altogether. And this is my Chanel boy bag in the old medium size. It's really just called the medium size, but Chanel released a new medium and didn't rename this one. So on these streets, it is referred to as the old medium size. And it is kind of pretty much what, you know, Jesse's just described in the caviar leather, pebbled with the gold tone hardware. And that's the bag that I wanted. But if I'm completely all the way honest, I can't say that I'm a huge Chanel girl. Not that I don't enjoy classic pieces, but I do think of my aesthetic more as an urban, casual kind of a person. So Chanel Classic Flap was not something that was really on my radar. Even with Pharrell doing Chanel collabs and all of that, it just wasn't really speaking to me until I saw this bag. So this bag is not considered a classic. It is still considered a seasonal piece, even though it's been around for, a bunch of years and it's still going strong. But I do like how edgy it is. I like how fresh and new it is. And I think it pairs a little bit more easily with things like sneakers and the jackets that I wear and jeans and things like that. Whereas, I mean, you can wear a Chanel Classic Flap with whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. But I kind of feel like that's more of a dressed up vibe, which is not typically what I go for. So this bag really made all the sense in the world for me. And it really opened my eyes to more Chanel, and I'm hoping to add more to my collection. But one of the pros I think about adding a newer bag to your collection is that it is a little bit different than what other people are already doing, so it kind of sets you apart a little bit in that way. So that is my contrasting view of Chanel vintage versus new.
The boy bag is growing on me, I will say.
Let it grow. Let's twin. Get one and let's twin.
At first, I was not a fan of the boy because, again, I am like typically so conservative with things, but it's really growing on me. And the more I'm looking at it, I'm like,
Yeah, it's awesome. And I want a bunch of different ones. I have a bunch on my wish list. Like there's an iridescent one that they make that I love. I like the small size. I'm just boy crazy at this point. So new Chanel, vintage Chanel, both good, but here you go. All right. What do you got next?
So I have a Louis Vuitton piece, and instead of doing the bags, which you covered so many of the bags, and there's just a lot of reviews on bags and all, I thought I would go to the travel world, which is why I fell in love with Louis Vuitton. Since I was a little girl just watching vintage films, every glamour like lady had those Louis Vuitton trunks, and I fell in love. I absolutely loved it. I don't have any trunks. That is my goal. I am working on acquiring. I just want a stack of trunks. It's not practical. I can't travel with those because I would pay like $4,000 in baggage fees. But I do want those trunks. But this, and I was going to do the luggage, but I decided not to because I did not show this. This is a vintage Louis Vuitton garment bag. Yes.
Wow.
I have been wanting, so I am a fashion designer. One of my degrees is in fashion design. So for school, whenever we had shows, we always had to have garment bags. And I was like barely alive. Louis Vuitton was not in my radar when I was in uni. So I would always have the cleaners bags or Macy's or Nordstrom's, wherever anyone would give me like a garment bag. And I always told myself, when I grew up, I am going to get me an amazing garment bag. So I had been looking at the new garment bags, which are really nice, but it just didn't hit the mark for me. Like, I had a lot of requirements, and the new ones were very, I'd say, just very fundamental. I don't like saying basic, but the newer ones, yeah, they're very fundamental. It is just what it is, a garment bag. You can put maybe 1 or 2 suits, men's suits, and that's not a lot. Since I do personal shopping, I need a lot of space. So if I'm working with clients, I want to be able to have, a ball gown or several suits. And
is that a ball gown?
Yeah, you can fit that in here. I'm going to show you.
Of course.
So with the newer Louis Vuitton garment bags, there aren't any pockets, I don't believe. This one has so many hidden parts. So I store shoes here, or my styling kit. So in my styling kit, I'll have, my notebook, a little sewing kit, tape measure, hem tape, just odds and ends that I need. So I can store that in here. And it's really heavy. The newer ones are not as heavy. So yeah, bear with me because you really need 2 people to navigate this thing. What I love about this as well, which the new one does not have, is this vintage hook. So you can hang it anywhere. So you would just hang it over a door, hook it on, and it hangs. And inside, I should have thought this through. Should have had the husband help me. I'm going to have to fold it. I'm going to fall out this chair. So again, just more storage. Inside, there's so many zippers, so many components. And one of my other features that I love, which the new one does not have, are these hanger hooks. So you see like the little teeth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You hook the hanger in here and you can lock it in, and it'll keep the clothes from falling out. So on the newer Louis Vuitton garment bags, it does not have the hook, and the hangers that come with, the goat hangers, they don't have the reinforced kind of rubber stopper thing. So if you're working with silks or chiffons, when you arrive to your destination, everything will be off the hanger because they just slip and slide everywhere. So it's the small details that I love that made me go vintage because, again, it's my thing. I feel that the older pieces, the craftsmanship was so superior than the things we have today. And again, much less. Like, I got this for like 50 cents. It was ridiculous. It wasn't 50 cents. Like, I'm kidding. What? No, it was a significant difference. Like almost half than what the new ones are. Yeah, and just with more features. Again, it is heavier. I will say that. The newer ones now, the canvas, it is very light, but I need the function more so than I don't really need to be that agile with my garment bag. So yes, that is why I chose the vintage garment bag. It is massive.
Beautiful.
Merci beaucoup. Oh, this thing is heavy. I am winded trying to.
Now you got your workout for the day. Woo. Who says fashion can't be?
I should have did it in this one, right?
Functional strength training right there built in. All right. Well, then I will present, I guess, my piece in contrast to the vintage. You, I don't think, can get more. Can you? Yeah, probably can. For Louis Vuitton, I don't know that you can get much more trendy and new wave than the Louis Vuitton bum bag. This bag is, its only purpose is to be part of a trend, right? So the bum bag trend came, Louis Vuitton jumped on, and this is their interpretation of the bum bag. And I enjoy this thing to no end. And I really had to think about adding it to my collection because it is so new, it is so trendy, and it is a, such a maybe flash in the pan kind of a moment, and I did have to wonder what I would do with this item once the trend fades. The answer to that really was that I love it independent of the trend, and I don't wear it as a bum bag, I guess, and I don't intend to wear it as a bum bag ever. I feel like it works great crossbody, front and back. So for that reason, I was just like, let me get it. But it actually took me well over a year after I fell in love with it to get it, and I can't say I don't regret that time. I do wish I had jumped on it sooner so that I could have enjoyed it longer, but it is what it is. I guess I don't regret it. You can't regret what's past, right? But I do love it. It is so, definitely contrasted with, I can't feel your garment bag, but this is very pliable. I mean, you could really just, like what's happened. Yeah. It just kind of folds on itself but in the most delightful way. And usually I keep it stuffed in there, a couple of things in there now, but not much. But it doesn't come with a lot of bells and whistles. It's just small. You grab it, you put your keys, your wallet, cell phone, maybe, I don't know what else, a mini pochette, and you're out the door. It is intended to be agile. It is intended to be fresh. I think it's still cool, and I think it's still relevant. But in 20 years' time, in 3 years' time, will anybody want to buy this the way they want to buy your garment bag?
I wouldn't tell mine.
But I mean, maybe it'll come back, because
right.
Were, 80s or 90s, and now we're back in most territory. But even when things come back, they come back differently. So I don't expect that we'll see another wave for this exact item. But anyway, it is what I have. So that's what I wanted to share is my Louis Vuitton bum bag as a new trendy piece that I enjoy immensely. So those are the items that we have. And then what we thought we would do is, nothing is perfect. Nothing is 100% amazing, even if we enjoy them. So what we thought we would do is talk about 2 pros and 2 cons to buying vintage versus more contemporary styles. So let's do. Do you want to
do 2 cons? Or what do we?
Oh, sorry. 1 pro and 1 con, and I'll do one.
Got it. Okay, so one of the pros for me, I wanted to say price, but that's not always the case because some vintage pieces are much more than newer ones. So I will not say price. I would say one of the pros is the history. I love stories. I love storytelling. I love books. Everything that has a story just makes me so happy. So whenever I buy pieces and I see that it's from, the 1970s, 60s, I have pieces actually from the 50s. When I look at those, I just come up with a story as to what was this woman doing, like when she had this bag. And I love looking like, how much did she pay for it? Like when this lady had this purse in the 1970s, how much did she pay for it? I wonder where was she working? Like I come up.
Did you see, somebody either DM'd us or tagged us in a post.
Yes, yes. That was Stacy. Yes.
So awesome. I was like,
I love it. And I even look at, so many, Audrey Hepburn films. They all had Louis Vuitton trunks and bags. And I look, and even, as much as I'm always talking about Sex and the City, I look back at Sex and the City. Of course, when I was in high school, I really didn't know what these things were. But Samantha had a crazy Louis Vuitton collection. And I never knew until now, like 3 of the bags I have, she had. So I'm like, maybe there was like some subconscious memory that, I didn't even realize it until recently. But yeah, so that is one, that is the pro, is if you are into history or storytelling, go vintage. The con, let's see, it's not perfect. It's not new, I will say. So one of the cons with vintage bags is that you can expect imperfections. These bags are 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 years old. So it will not be perfect. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with sometimes investing money to have items restored. I have purchased some pieces where after purchasing, I still had to pay money to have either the lining replaced or handles replaced. It's an investment. You have to be willing to just not have perfection because it's not new. So those are my 2.
cool. Yeah, I bought my Monster-Reese GM backpack, which just happens to be sitting there because that's, I use it very often. So it sits there, and within, like, it's in perfect condition, except this leather strap. I don't even know if okay, that's not working out. This leather strap. Whoa. Within like maybe a week of having it now, it's a pretty thin piece of leather and it just gets dry, and that's just what happens. So I wasn't mad. This bag is 25 plus years old. Right. So that strap really hung on. But I needed to replace it almost instantly. So
yeah. And that's a chance that you take with vintage pieces. You have to be willing to repair them on your own. And unfortunately, a lot of the retailers now, they won't repair the items for you. There was a time before, like, the pre-loved market became so saturated, you could take a 50, 40-year-old Louis Vuitton back to the shop and have it restored, or even with Chanel. But now they're becoming like very stringent with the rules as to what they will repair. So my advice is to find a really, really good purse surgeon that you trust, or I kind of lean on the side of caution when saying this. I don't want people to blame me if they destroy bags, but some stuff, just YouTube. I mean, you can learn anything on YouTube. Just, if there's a stain, Google it, look it up. You are not the first person to have like a baby oil stain inside your purse. See how someone else removed it. But yeah, that's that.
True. Okay, well then I will talk about one pro. So these pros are completely subjective, right? Like Jessie's talking about history. She cares about history and she loves that. If you don't care about that, you might be like, that's not a pro. So we can't do that, right? We're just talking about things that matter to us. Yeah. It's our gab, so we'll talk about what we want. So this is not, so I preface my pro with that, because one of the things that is important to me is to have things that are a little bit off of the beaten path. And not that the boy bag or the bum bag are rare, right? Plenty of people have them, but also I find that there's a middle bracket of items that neither of us have ventured into, and that's not what this is about, but it's that middle tier of your very functional, very, what did you call it, Jessie? Fundamental pieces. We're talking about the Neverfulls, we're talking about the Speedies, we're talking about the Almas and things like that. Those bags are the market is pretty saturated because they're amazing bags and people get a lot of use out of them, right? But then on either end, you get the vintage, which a lot of people are too scared to go to unless you're this badass here, or the trendier pieces where people who are newer to luxury are kind of like, well, I need more of a workhorse than a bum bag. So for me, one of the nice things about buying newer, more contemporary pieces is that it does have a little bit more of a pizzazz and a little bit of a stand apart than some of the bags that are in that middle tier that that we're not addressing today. So I think if you, this is going to sound terrible, but it's our gap, so I'll say what I want. If you enjoy turning heads, if you don't mind, if you're not just trying to blend into the background, like if you want something that says, hi, I'm here, like if you don't mind wearing Gucci for mules to a library, then getting some of these newer pieces would be exactly. So, you know, it does add a little bit of interest to an outfit, especially I think if you're more of a casual dresser, than getting something that kind of lets people know that you're interested in fashion, that you're interested in style, and that you're not just like kind of coasting. I think that's definitely a pro, and you're less likely to walk into a party in my area anyway and find somebody who's got a Chanel medium boy bag than a Chanel classic flap. You know, that people just go to them because they're great investments and they're great bags to have. So that's one pro if that's important to you about buying some of these. The con is definitely the depreciation. I would not be completely honest if I didn't say that, you know, that's something to consider, because they're not inexpensive, you know, especially when they are brand new. What I never recommend is buying way above retail. Like if you want to spend a little more on retail to get something that's a little bit newer and harder to find, go for it. But sometimes I see bags selling for 25, 50% above retail because they're so hot and people can't get them directly through the boutiques. The reality of that is once the heat dies, all you're left with is a bag that's worth less than retail, less than what it was even selling for retail. And then if you don't love it and you're trying to resell it, then you do take a pretty substantial hit, which, you know, doesn't quite happen with vintage. I mean, whatever the price is with pieces that are loved, you pay this for it, and if it doesn't work out for you, you can pretty much get that for it or more. You know, it does tend to tick up, which I don't expect to get anything near what I paid for this when I go to sell it in 5 years' time when I'm really, really over it. That's just, you know, part of the reality. There is a small asterisk to that, which is, you know, that the trends kind of go in a curve. So there is a point where you can make a little bit more if you sell it while the trend is hot, but then you don't have the item while it's
right.
The purpose,
a bunch of pictures and a bunch of outfits, so you can just pretend that you still have it after you sold it for.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, I recouped my money, but then you don't have the item. Is ridiculous. So there's that, but I don't know if I'd recommend going that route. So that's the reason too I said I kind of regretted waiting a year to get this, because knowing that it's not going to be a piece that will, you know, last the ages. If I'd had it even a year earlier, I would have enjoyed it for a year earlier. Regret is a strong word. That's not quite what I mean, but I think for trendy pieces, you know, you just have to know that you're basically pouring money into something that you love and enjoy, and it's not an investment. Not that any bag is an investment, but these especially are just not.
And that's why I always recommend, I tell people, you know, I've never bought into the notion of, oh, you have to have this bag, you have to have this. I tell, just get what you want, get what you like don't buy things with the notion of investing. If you want to invest, like, get stocks, like talk to a financial advisor, like don't purchase these items with the hope of reselling. Just get stuff that you genuinely love, so that when the trend is over, you still love it. I know that one. I don't know if you can see what I'm pointing to. the Christian Dior tote.
Oh yeah, you're baby.
But it's like, it's a classic to me, and I feel like, you know, we lose that, or the term is used so loosely, where it's like classic can only be these 5 things. If it's a classic to you, it's a classic to you. So that bum bag, you wear that for the rest of your life. If you love it, if it is, yeah, it's like, it is my classic. Who, set these rules as to, what is necessarily a classic. So I advise everyone to create your own classics. Like, just do what makes you happy, because it's your money. And yeah.
I could not agree more. Whether it's, a new trend or a vintage piece, there are some pieces that are out there that are classic pieces that I won't go near because they just don't move me that way.
Yeah.
And I admire them. I see them on people, but I'm not investing in that. Like the Lady Dior, for example.
I was thinking about that.
Like that's not a bag I have anything negative to say about. I've never owned it, but I've never seen it and felt, oh, there's a bag that I will be, comfortable and happy to wear. But it's a classic, like good for the people who consider it that. And it's definitely not trendy or, passing. It's a classic, but I'm not doing it. Versus, right, this bum bag, I will wear it until the arms fall off and then I'll get over it. And that's more so, it's Louis Vuitton, so probably it won't fall off, but you never know.
Don't service that one, so you're good, because you purchased that brand new, so you can take that to get that serviced. I, on the other hand, that's why I'm so friendly with these SAs. Like, you have to be charming. They have looked out for me. A few, I'm like, are you sure? Thank you. So,
yeah. Well, do we have any last bit of advice, or I don't know, final tip for purchasing vintage if somebody who's inclined to purchase?
My tip is to just not be afraid. Do your research. I will say, just from my experience, I have not had a really bad issue with counterfeits in the vintage market, as some people may have. I hear that that's like a big reason why most people are afraid to buy vintage, is because of the counterfeit. What I will say is that it's the new bags that scares me, because the new knockoffs, these things are insane. Like,
they're very close to the real.
Really good, yeah. Versus it's hard to knock off. Like, I'm not going to say there weren't, but I don't think you were really knocking off bags in like the 70s and 60s. And if they were, it is like blatantly a knockoff, versus now, where we have that technology where you can produce very, very close to the authentic one. So I would just say, do your research. A lot of people, because of serial codes or numbers, people get a bit scared with vintage items to not purchase because it doesn't have the date code. Do your research. You have to understand that a lot of Louis Vuitton or even Chanel, before certain dates, they didn't have stamp codes or dates. So you can't always go off of that. Just take your time, do your research. Again, I always recommend people, I wouldn't buy from someone if that was their first designer item they were selling. I like to see people who have a history of selling luxury items. I like to look at their reviews. I get a little stalkerish, and if they have their name, I look them up on
ridiculous.
Yeah. I look them up on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else, just to get a little, like, was this person wearing this bag? Have they ever? That's just me. I get a little extreme, but just do your research, because there are some really, really good deals out here if you take your time. Take your time and be willing to invest money in repairs, because it will not be perfect. So don't be discouraged if there's a little stain or the strap needs to be replaced. Things like that, for what you're saving, it's worth it.
True. Awesome. I guess I'll offer this as a final tip to purchasing more contemporary, more on-trend items, is do be mindful about that. I'm advocating for these two because they are trendy, but they suit my personal style well. Not every trendy item does, and I don't need a closet full of trendy items. So do be careful and do beware. You know, these fashion houses are cranking out new designs almost like the fast fashion places.
It's getting scary.
Yeah, like you can literally, I get so many emails, you know, because I just get the emails from them, and almost it's like fall, pre-winter, winter, pre-spring, spring, pre-summer, summer. It's like all these new launches and all these releases all the time. And yeah, you could, if you really enjoy that, I suppose, do it. But I hear a lot, and I've said it myself, so I just want to clear that up. Well, buy it and enjoy it and then sell it. The reality is, selling things is a hassle, and you really, even when you make money, you never quite make money because there are always fees. Always, if you sell it through a website, they want their cut. If you sell it through, and why would anybody pay unless for some reason it's that kind of an item, you know, these hard to find items or whatever? Why would anybody pay close to retail to buy something that you've already worn? Yeah. So you're already gonna be at a deficit there, and then you've got to pay the site fees and all of that. So
that's true.
You know, yeah, do move with some mindfulness and some caution about them. I'm not saying don't buy them and don't enjoy them. Clearly I do, and I intend to continue to do that if I see pieces that move me and that, you know, fulfill all those pros that I'm talking about, where I feel like they make me stand out a little bit. They're a little bit off of the beaten path and add a little bit more interest to my style and my appearance. But I am not going to have this whole closet up in here full of like the newest, hottest trends, because you can really go down that rabbit hole quick and, you know, go broke real easy. So I guess that's it. So that's where. Yeah. So I guess we'll end our gab here. Thanks everyone and anyone who watches, and we'll tag each other. And if you have questions about any of the items that we've talked about or our approaches to luxury shopping generally,
we're here. Just a DM away.
Yeah. So thanks for watching.
Ciao for now.